Hello and welcome to This Week in Laker Football, your weekly exclusive look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team all throughout their 2024 campaign. I'm Tyler Kieft, joined by head coach Zach Hilbers on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Last week, a very competitive game, especially early on, and then Clarkston got out in the second half and ran away 35-20, ultimately to end that game. But let's start from the beginning, where there was some signs of progress and promise from your team against the competitive Clarkston team. Take us through that first half and that sort of back and forth nature and how you were able to navigate that and keep the team focused and motivated to keep their foot on the gas against the Wolves.
You know, I was actually, I guess all in all, it's a disappointing game because I thought for 3.5 quarters or so we played really close with a really good team on the road. And, you know, it was a one-score game about 5 minutes into the fourth quarter when things kind of went sideways for us and kind of forced us into scramble mode in some ways, and you know they took advantage, and you got to give them credit for that. But you know, like you had mentioned, it was a really good start to the game. We thought the game plan, the kids bought into it. They really did a good job executing it. We did a lot of things really well, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough, and you know that's ultimately what we're judged by.
We knew going in it was going to be an all three phases battle for your team against a program like Clarkston's, but it was really tough, I would think, for the defense, especially with that two-headed monster in the backfield of Lucas and Griffin Bowman. Now, how did you initially go into that game looking to game plan them out of that offense as best as possible, and how satisfied were you with the results, especially early on in the rushing game?
I guess really satisfied early on. You know, like I said, the game plan seemed to work pretty good, and the kids, I got to give them credit. We really bought in, and they accepted the challenge, I guess, of stopping those two. And I'll give Clarkston credit. They made a couple really good adjustments in the second half to what we were doing to them, and changed some of their schemes from their tendencies to go a little bit more off tackle as opposed to between the tackles. And they got us, especially when you know we were playing from down to score. Got a little bit more aggressive in hindsight than we maybe needed to be. And they hit us where we were weak.
It seemed like they got really creative with some of their play calls, especially in some of those 50-50 moments. You think about the Brady Beck fake punt pass early on in the game that really sort of turned the momentum in favor of Clarkston in that moment. And, of course, the pendulum would swing back and forth throughout that game. But on the other side, we talked about the rushing game for Clarkston. For your side, just 93 yards on the ground, pretty uncharacteristic for the season, tied for the second lowest rushing yards of the year for your team. How did Clarkston get out against your rush game in there, and then how did that make you adjust your offense to get the passing game that had been a little bit more on the back burner over the first 4 weeks?
It was partially them, you know, adjusting in some of their fronts and bringing a little bit of outside pressure, which we expected in the pass game, maybe not so the run game. And then also the situation of the game itself. When we got down in the fourth quarter, we started to pass a little bit more, and really in hindsight, we probably should have stuck with the run game a little bit longer, especially in the second half. But you know, when that was our game plan out of halftime, and we fumbled the second play of the second half. So a lot of things change when you don't do what you're supposed to and you do that and turn the ball over.
We talked about last week the implications of that game in the OAA Red Division. Given Rochester Adams' 3-point loss to Lake Orion, in a position where that could have been a really huge game in the standings for your team. With that being a disappointment on top of a disappointment, how do you keep the team focused on the rest of this OAA Red Division schedule? And still, 4 weeks left you have in this regular season.
Yeah, it's definitely been disappointing in the league because we went on the road twice and played two really good teams closely and didn't get the result we wanted either time. But you know, as I was showing the kids and like the schedule, like there's a legitimate, realistic chance that every team in this league's 2-2, and if we win the next two games and Lake Orion beats Clarkston, like that's a likelihood is that everyone's going to be 2-2. That might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves right now because right now we just got to focus on ourselves and take care of the team at hand, which is Lake Orion. But you know, we knew it was a competitive league. We knew the parity would be there. It's proven to be true, and we just got to get on the right side of that parity for once.
And how do you balance that then? Because you look at the record, and you're 2-3 overall. You've lost a couple of really tough games within the Red Division against Rochester Adams and against Clarkston. But like you said, this season is very still in the cards to be competitive, to have a solid playoff run, and even possibly be competitive in the Red. How do you preach balance to this team after those tough experiences?
Well, I think it's not just football, like society in general. We really judge on, I guess, the outcome, in this case, wins and losses. And it's tough because in a lot of ways, I think we're playing better football right now than we were a year ago when we were 4-1. It just sure doesn't feel like that when you've lost 3 games. Now, we also turned the ball over at some inopportune times, and that's really hurt us. But in the whole of it, I think we're playing pretty good. We just got to play a complete game when it comes down to it.
Lakers are going to have a tough game ahead of them this Friday at the Swamp, 7 o'clock kickoff against Lake Orion. We'll begin with our coverage a little bit before that in the Laker pregame show and have it all for you right here on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. We'll take a quick break on This Week in Laker Football. On the other side, we'll focus on defense and some of the impact players in that phase of the game. Then later on, Coach Hilbers will come right back here and we'll preview that game against the Lake Orion Dragons. It's This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. 40 seconds left in the first quarter. 7-3 ball game in favor of Clarkston. Lakers will return from the goal line up to the 20-yard line to 25-30. Left side wide open. Cam Flowers 45-50. Gates gonna go all the way. Cam Flowers touchdown WB.
We've got news. Civic Center TV just reached 1 million views on YouTube. Over the years, we've filed over 10,000 stories. We've covered local parades and events, life-saving efforts by first responders, remarkable accomplishments of local individuals, state championship athletic teams, and our area's history, government, and the people who volunteer to make our community better. Civic Center TV on cable, online, and on social media, now with over 1 million views on YouTube. Civic Center TV, thanks for watching. You're 1 in a million.
Live, local, social. Dive into your community with the Splash Live. Coverage of events and exciting developments in the greater West Bloomfield area. Join Tyler Kieft, Kevin McIntosh, and the rest of our staff live out on the street or in our studio. Weekdays live on Comcast Channel 15 or on AT&T at Channel 99. Watch us online too on Facebook at Civic Center TV 15, on YouTube at Civic Center TV, or on our website, civiccentertv.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football. I'm Tyler Kieft alongside West Bloomfield Lakers safety Will Espy. And Will, the defense has been a highlight for the Lakers so far this season, but it's a younger defense, which means guys like you have had a couple of years now on varsity are stepping into leadership roles. Talk about how you've been able to embrace that this season and take some of those younger players, those newer varsity players under your wing.
With the guys that were from last year, all the senior guys and all the guys who mentored me from now, it helped me become a better player and a better leader because, as you know, I am a junior captain, so it helped me become a better leader to lead the guys on the defense and to help the younger guys who just got up here to play better and to know their job and know their assignment and do what they have to do.
And that secondary in particular, it's a tough task because it is where the majority of the youth on this defense is. The line is pretty well set and has some experienced guys there, so does the linebacking core. So then how do you incorporate that mentorship into this season while also still focusing on really tough opponents that you've had these first 5 weeks, particularly in the receiving cores?
Yeah, most of the teams that we go against are usually running teams, but with the defensive back core, we focus on all of the wide receivers, no matter who they is, no matter what team we're going against. And we want the guys who know what they're doing to be out on the field and the guys who know how to make plays to be out on the field most of the time. So mentoring them is really easy because they're my friends outside of football and outside of school. So mentoring them and being with them and bringing them up is pretty easy, and they ball players, so they do what they had to do to get us the job done.
I'd imagine for you, having those players like you kind of alluded to earlier on over the past couple of years, like Jameer and like Blaze Rowe, and before them, Adrian Epps, as sort of those role models, has to be helpful for you, especially given the experience that you've had over the last couple of years, particularly last year coming into your role. Yeah. So how did their influence help you provide your influence to these players this season?
All of them guys like Jameer and Bryce, they mean a word to me. I mean, I still train with them when they come back home now, and I still be with them when they come back home now. They still call me sometimes from time to time and talk to me about my technique and what I did in the game. So them mentoring me helped me with a lot, and just them being my big brother, also outside of football, helped me become the man that I am on the field and off the field today.
Over the past couple of weeks, it's been Kind of a tale of feast and famine for your defense. Last week going up against Brady Beck and that receiving core with Clarkston, a really tough task, whereas the week before, guys like Tawan Esper of Southfield A&T, a tough guy to guard on any given week. Seemed like you guys had a lot of success there. So how do you kind of take the good and the bad from the last 2 weeks and make sure your guys are staying focused, your teammates are staying focused on a still very tough schedule ahead from the secondary?
Being a DB, you got to have a short memory out here. So we usually come with a short memory, and we come ready to play ball every week no matter who we go against, because we know that we got the guys to make the plays out on the field, and we know that we got the scheme to make the plays out on the field. So no matter whether it's Clarkston, Lake Orion, we just want to come out there and make plays against their wide receivers and still be able to play in the run game also.
Will Espy with us, junior safety here for the West Bloomfield Lakers. 15 tackles over the last 2 weeks, including 9 solo tackles against Clarkston and against Southfield A&T. For you, what do you think's been the difference maker in being able to not only take a step forward from a leadership standpoint, but as we just mentioned, from the playmaking standpoint and make some really key plays for the Lakers against its tough schedule this season?
Everything that's come now has all been done in the offseason. So the work in the offseason, the mentors that I've been put on, the work that I put in, all of it has came from December, January, March, all of those times. And making plays is really just something that I've been doing in my life, you know what I'm saying? So just making plays, it comes natural to me, and it's also the scheme that Coach Cam and Coach Ryan help us with every single week, and we just follow it every single week, and that helped me make plays.
For those young players coming up in this Lakers system, whether they're JV, freshmen, or they're playing at the middle school level, or even just starting their football careers and looking up to you guys, what's the best piece of advice you have for them on how they can turn their game into high-level football like you and your teammates are playing at the varsity level here at West Bloomfield?
Put the work in and know the scheme. The scheme is everything, because if you don't know the scheme and you don't know what you're doing on the field, you won't be able to play fast, because knowing what you're doing on the field, it helps you play way more faster than your body and you think your body can even go. And also the work. You got to put the work in the off season, and even during the season, during practice like we're about to go to, you still have to put the work in. You still got to play like every day is your last day.
We want to get you out to practice here, so I'll take another minute with you. And I know we'd like to get to know the players a little bit, get to know their interests outside of football, but I want to take and turn that on its head a little bit. What other activities or other interests do you have outside of football that ultimately come back to help you on the football field each Friday?
Me and my friends, we like to go out. We like to go outside. We like to go bowling. We like to do a lot of these things, and it helps us with focus and with being able to have fun even though you're trying to be competitive. So the game is all about having fun at the end of the day, because it's a game, but you also got to be competitive and try to win at any given moment and be able to put your all in at any given moment. And being with my friends outside, that helps me, make those things happen, yeah.
We've got another very competitive week coming up at West Bloomfield High School. Lake Orion coming in next week. Then it's Oxford the week after that, both with equally great wide receiving cores. It's going to be a challenge for Will and the fellas in the secondary of these next couple weeks. Seems like they're up for that challenge. Will, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We'll take a break on This Week in Laker Football. On the other side, Coach Hilbers will come back and we'll preview this upcoming matchup with the 4-1 Lake Orion Dragons. It's This Week in Laker Football on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Right on the 20 at the middle hash, bunch formation. Wajenko, handoff right up the gut. It's going to be close. He's not going to get there. Lakers stop him. Jeremiah Benson pulls him down, and it's going to force a fourth.
Watch West Bloomfield Lakers football all season long on 89.3 Lakes FM and Civic Center TV. Join Tyler Kieft and Matt Catoni each week for live, in-depth, and exclusive coverage before, during, and after the big game. It's your local high school football team on the road and in your backyard on your home for West Bloomfield Laker football, Civic Center TV, and 89.3 Lakes FM.
I'm Greg Flynn, the fire chief here in West Bloomfield. Congratulations, Civic Center TV, on your 1 million views on YouTube. Together we share the message of community safety and preparedness, making West Bloomfield a safe and wonderful place to live. My name's Greg Flynn, and I'm proud to be 1 in a million.
Welcome back to This Week in Laker Football, your exclusive weekly look into the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. I'm Tyler Kieft, alongside head coach Zach Hilbers. Lakers coming in 2-3 to this week. Lake Orion coming in 4-1, and they've had an impressive few weeks. A tough loss against Oxford, but other than that, a really impressive win last week against Rochester Adams, which before that it looked like they were going to potentially be running away with the OAA Red Division. What do we know about Lake Orion as they come into a game that's always a challenge for both sides on that football field?
Yeah, they're pretty good. The only game they've lost, their quarterback was hurt, and last week it looked like the Adams quarterback didn't play in the second half, so I don't know if that had a factor into things or not. But, you know, Lake Orion's offense was really kind of in control at that point anyway, and it kind of inserted themselves when he went out anyway. But their O-line's really tough. Quarterback's a great player, great runner, and they have just an assortment of skill guys that they kind of sprinkle in there all over the place that make it hard to plan for.
Last year's game against Lake Orion, much like we've seen throughout the OAA Red in this season, very competitive game, came down to really the last drive for your team. How does that then take on the lessons that you've had so far this season, that close game against Rochester Adams, that close game for, like you said, about 3/4 of the way through against Clarkston, and executing on that field this Friday, having that home field advantage against a team that's given you a little bit of trouble, and you've given them a lot of trouble in the last few years?
Yeah. Well, we just know that if both teams show up like we expect to, it'll be a battle, just like the last couple games have been. And, we have to go in and ready to embrace that challenge because they're a tough physical team. They block hard, they run through blocks, they swarm the football, and they kind of rely on their players to make plays.
At this point in the season with a team as young as yours, you start to think about development. How far of progress have your players made to be able to play critical football situations as we go into these last 4 weeks? What's your evaluation of some of the younger guys, particularly that young defense that we were looking at coming into the season, and their performance over these last 5 weeks?
I'm really happy with where they've come to at this point. We're not quite a finished product yet, but Clarkston's a really good team that historically has scored a bunch of points against us, and halfway through the fourth quarter it was a 21-13 game, and 7 of those were off of fake punt and wide receiver screen, and another 7 were because we fumbled the ball in our red zone. So we haven't really given our defense the best field position sometimes, and we've given them pretty challenging situations, and they've still really stepped up. Now the challenge will be to finish games because Clarkston finished us off on that side of the ball, and Rochester Adams kind of did the same thing in a closer game, but they still really kind of asserted themselves in the fourth quarter. So I'm happy with where we're at. We just really need to finish the game and really get on the right side of the victory column.
How can this game help to inform where your Lakers need to be over the 3 weeks after that, going up against Oxford, also a very tough team that's made huge strides this season, a C-home team that's had an excellent year so far, and then Roseville that gives teams all across the state trouble each and every year? Yeah,
definitely doesn't get easier. Lake Orion's really good. Like I said, their only loss is when probably their best player was hurt. Oxford looks better, C-Home's undefeated, and Roseville's talented up and down the roster, kind of like we are. So we know every week's going to be a challenge, and we knew the schedule was hard to begin with, and we're really just focused on ourselves and finding what we need to do to dig ourselves out of this and get on the right side.
Every year it seems like this Lake Orion game turns out to be a classic. What kind of lesson can that teach your players, both in the game and then as you think about the context of the last few years going into it?
We've been in a lot of classics with them and teams like Clarkston, and which is a lot of fun, but the classic last year where we dropped at their place isn't the type we want, you know what I mean? We've had our fair share this year of close battles that we didn't pull out at the end, so it's time we get one that's close and hard fought that we win.
That'll be the question for this week's Friday. Can they come out with a tough win and show that the Lakers are still in this thing in the OAA Red Division? We'll know Friday night. West Bloomfield taking on Lake Orion. 7 o'clock kickoff, our full coverage right here on Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. Coach, thanks as always.
You got it. Thank you.
We thank you also for tuning in to This Week in Laker Football. In the meantime, keep up to date with everything about the football team all season long on civiccentertv.com/Lakersports. And make sure to tune in for our Friday football coverage each and every week. On behalf of the entire athletic department at West Bloomfield High School and our team at Civic Center TV, I'm Tyler Kieft. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in Laker Football.